The flight landed 2 hours early. Naomi smiled to herself as she turned off airplane mode on her phone, imagining Trevor's face when she walked through the door with his favorite takeout and the expensive watch she'd bought for their 5th anniversary. The Seattle conference had been productive, but she'd missed him. 3 weeks apart was too long. She'd kept the early return a secret, wanting to surprise him. Their anniversary was tomorrow, but why wait? Tonight they could start celebrating. She'd even cleared her schedule for the entire weekend, something she rarely did. The taxi pulled up to their modest 2-story home in the suburbs. Everything looked normal. Trevor's car was in the driveway, which made sense since it was Saturday afternoon. She paid the driver, grabbed her luggage and the shopping bags and headed to the front door. The house was quiet when she stepped inside. "Trevor?" she called out, setting down her bags in the entryway. No response. Maybe he was taking a nap or listening to music with headphones. She climbed the stairs, her heart light with anticipation. The bedroom door was slightly open. She pushed it wider, stepping into the room with a smile ready on her lips. That smile died instantly. Trevor was in their bed. But he wasn't alone. A woman with long auburn hair was beside him, wrapped in sheets that Naomi had picked out just 3 months ago. They weren't even trying to hide. They were just lying there, talking and laughing, completely comfortable. The woman saw her first. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't scream or scramble to cover herself. Instead, she looked almost annoyed at the interruption. Trevor turned his head. When he saw Naomi standing in the doorway, frozen in shock, he didn't look guilty. He didn't look ashamed. He just looked irritated. "You're home early," he said flatly, sitting up. The woman pulled the sheet higher, watching with cool detachment. Naomi's bags slipped from her hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. This was her husband. This was their bedroom. This was their anniversary weekend. "Trevor?" she finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. "What is this?" He swung his legs over the side of the bed, standing up and reaching for his pants without any sense of urgency. "This is Simone. My boss. I've mentioned her. Simone. The demanding boss who required late nights and weekend work. The boss whose calls Trevor always took even during dinner. The boss he'd been complaining about for months while secretly praising her to others. Your boss. Naomi repeated, her voice hollow. Trevor, why is your boss in our bed? He pulled on his shirt, not meeting her eyes. Because I'm in a relationship with her. I've been meaning to talk to you about this, actually. The timing is just terrible. Terrible timing? Naomi's voice rose, shock giving way to a surge of pain and anger. You're cheating on me in our home, in our bed, and you're worried about timing? I'm not cheating, Trevor said, his tone defensive. Cheating implies I'm trying to hide something. I'm being honest now. Simone and I are together. We've been together for 3 months. 3 months. While Naomi had been traveling for work, building her career, believing she had a loving husband waiting at home. 3 months of lies. Simone finally spoke, her voice smooth and cold. Trevor, maybe we should have this conversation when she's calmer. Don't talk about me like I'm not here, Naomi snapped, her eyes flashing. She looked at the woman who'd destroyed her marriage. Simone was beautiful, polished, dressed now in an expensive blouse and slacks. She looked like someone used to getting what she wanted. Naomi, look, Trevor said, his voice taking on a condescending tone that made her stomach turn. You're never here anyway. You're always gone on your business trips, always busy with work. Simone understands my needs. She makes time for me. I travel for work to support us. Naomi shot back. You said you understood. You said you were proud of my career. I lied. The words hit her like a slap. Trevor shrugged, showing no remorse. I was proud at first, but then I met Simone. She's successful, powerful, and she actually wants to spend time with me. She values me. I valued you. I loved you. Naomi's voice cracked. She hated that she was showing weakness in front of them, but 5 years of marriage, of trust, of building a life together was crumbling in minutes. Past tense. Exactly. Trevor walked to the closet and pulled out a duffel bag. I'm leaving Naomi. I'm moving in with Simone. She has a penthouse downtown, a real home for successful people. Not this suburban starter house you insisted on keeping. This house that Naomi had bought with her own money, though Trevor didn't know that. This house she'd chosen because it felt like a home, not a showpiece. You're leaving? Just like that? On our anniversary weekend? Naomi felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. See, this is what I mean, Trevor said, zipping up the bag. You remember the anniversary, but where have you been for the last year? At conferences. At meetings. At dinners with colleagues. Simone is present. She's there when I need her. Simone stood up, dressed now, collecting her things with the confidence of someone who'd already won. Trevor, darling, we should go. This is clearly getting too emotional. Darling? Naomi repeated, the word tasting like poison. You're calling him darling in front of his wife? Ex-wife actually, Trevor corrected, pulling his wedding ring off and tossing it at Naomi's feet. It bounced once and rolled under the dresser. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. You can keep the house. I don't need it anymore. He walked past her, Simone following close behind. Naomi stood paralyzed, unable to move or speak. She heard them go down the stairs, heard the front door open and close. Heard Trevor's car start and drive away. Only then did she move, her legs giving out as she sank to the floor. The bedroom suddenly felt enormous and empty. The sheets were still rumpled from their betrayal. The air still carried Simone's expensive perfume. Naomi wrapped her arms around herself, her body shaking. But she didn't cry. Not yet. She was too shocked, too numb. She looked at the spot where Trevor's wedding ring had disappeared. 5 years, reduced to a piece of metal under the furniture. 5 years of her life, discarded like it meant nothing. But as she sat there in the wreckage of her marriage, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered something that would grow louder in the hours to come. Trevor had no idea who he'd just left. None at all. Naomi sat on the bedroom floor for over an hour before she finally moved. The sun had shifted, casting different shadows across the room. She stood up slowly, her legs stiff, and walked to the window. Trevor's car was gone. He was really gone. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and dialed a number she had on speed dial. Jordan speaking, came the crisp, professional voice of her executive assistant. It's me, Naomi said quietly. I need you to clear my schedule for the next 3 days. All meetings, all calls. Everything. There was a pause. Jordan had worked for her for 7 years and could read her moods instantly. What happened? Trevor found out I'm not who he thinks I am. Naomi laughed bitterly. Actually, no. He still doesn't know. He just left me for someone he thinks is more successful than me. I'm coming over, Jordan said immediately. No. Naomi took a deep breath, straightening her spine. Not yet. I need a few hours to process. But tomorrow, I need you to pull every file we have on TechVision Industries. Every single document. TechVision? That's one of our subsidiary companies. Why? Jordan stopped. Wait, doesn't Trevor work there? He does. And so does his new girlfriend. The woman he just left me for. Naomi walked to her closet and opened the hidden door in the back, revealing the private office she'd built when they moved in. Trevor had never questioned why one closet was slightly smaller than it should be. Inside was her real life. The life Trevor knew nothing about. On the walls were framed magazine covers featuring her face. Forbes, Fortune, Business Weekly. Naomi Bennett, the self-made billionaire revolutionizing global trade. At 32, Bennett Global Solutions CEO is changing the game. How Naomi Bennett built an empire from nothing. Her laptop sat on the desk, password protected with financial reports showing the current value of Bennett Global Solutions, $8.7 billion. Trevor thought she was Grace Collins, a mid-level manager at a consulting firm who traveled frequently for client meetings. He'd never questioned why she was vague about her job. He'd never asked to meet her colleagues. He'd been content to let her pay most of the bills from what he assumed was a decent salary, while he worked his way up at what he thought was an impressive tech company. The truth was so much bigger than he'd ever imagined. Naomi Bennett had started her first business at 22, right after college. A simple import-export company that connected American manufacturers with overseas suppliers. She'd worked 18-hour days, slept in her car when she couldn't afford rent, and built her empire dollar by dollar. By 25, she'd expanded into technology logistics. By 28, she'd gone global. By 30, she was a billionaire. By 32, Bennett Global Solutions owned 17 subsidiary companies across 6 continents, including TechVision Industries. She'd met Trevor 6 years ago at a coffee shop, before her biggest expansion. He'd been charming, funny, and kind. For the first time in her adult life, someone was interested in her as a person, not as a business opportunity or a networking contact. She'd been tired of being Naomi Bennett, CEO. She'd wanted to be just Naomi. Just a woman. So she'd introduced herself as Grace Collins, told him she worked in consulting, and let him believe she was ordinary. When they'd gotten serious, she'd planned to tell him the truth. But then she'd started noticing things. The way Trevor's eyes lit up when he talked about wealthy clients at his company. The way he compared himself to his more successful co-workers. The casual comments about wanting a bigger house, a luxury car, a lifestyle that matched his ambitions. She'd decided to wait. To see if he really loved her, not the image of success she could provide. Now she had her answer. Trevor had left Grace Collins for someone he thought was powerful and wealthy. He'd left the woman he thought was beneath him for a woman he believed was his equal. The irony was devastating. Simone worked as a regional director at TechVision Industries, making roughly $300,000 a year. A good salary certainly. But Naomi could buy and sell her entire life 100 times over without noticing the dent in her bank account. Naomi pulled out her tablet and logged into the private Bennett Global Network. She accessed the TechVision employee database. There was Trevor's file. Mid-level manager, sales division, salary of $90,000 a year. Performance reviews were average. He was coasting. She switched to Simone's file. Regional director hired 2 years ago. Good performance initially, but recent reports showed concerning patterns. Extended expense accounts. Frequent client dinners with no documented clients. Multiple reports of favoritism towards certain employees. Naomi made a note to have her security team investigate Simone's activities. If she was embezzling or committing fraud, that would be valuable information. Her phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. Please don't make this difficult. Sign the divorce papers when they arrive. You'll be fine. She stared at the message. Part of her wanted to text back the truth right now. To tell him exactly who she was and watch his world implode. But that would be too easy. Too quick. No. Trevor wanted to believe he'd traded up. He wanted to think he'd left a boring, absent wife for a powerful, present partner. Let him believe it. Let him enjoy his victory for a while. Because when the truth came out, and it would come out, his fall would be so much harder. Naomi Bennett didn't get to where she was by acting on emotion. She got there by being strategic, patient, and ruthless when necessary. Trevor had hurt her deeply. He'd betrayed her trust, mocked her love, and thrown away their marriage without a second thought. But more than that, he'd shown her who he really was. A man who valued status over substance. Who chose perceived power over genuine connection. She wouldn't cry over him. Not anymore. She would plan. Naomi typed a response to Trevor. I understand. I hope you'll be happy. Short. Dignified. Giving him exactly what he wanted. An easy exit. She put her phone down and pulled out a legal pad. At the top, she wrote, Operation Revelation. Then she started making a list. She had resources Trevor couldn't imagine. Information he didn't know existed. Power he'd never understand. By the time she was done planning, Trevor would realize exactly what he'd lost. And it would destroy him. Not with her hands. Not with revenge in the traditional sense. Just with the truth. Sometimes the truth was the most devastating weapon of all. Monday morning arrived with crystal clear skies. Naomi stood in her private office at Bennett Global headquarters on the 45th floor, looking out over the city skyline. From this height, the problems of ordinary people seemed small. But she remembered being ordinary once before the money and success. She remembered struggling and fighting for every opportunity. That's why Trevor's betrayal cut so deep. He hadn't fallen in love with someone else. He'd fallen in love with what he thought was a better life. Jordan knocked and entered, carrying a thick folder and 2 coffee cups. Triple espresso, no sugar, just like you need on days like this, she said, handing one to Naomi. You read my mind. Naomi took the cup gratefully. She hadn't slept well. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Trevor and Simone in her bed. I pulled everything on TechVision Industries like you asked. Jordan set the folder on Naomi's desk. And I did some extra digging. You're going to want to see this. Naomi opened the folder. Inside were expense reports, email logs, and security footage stills from TechVision's offices. What am I looking at? Simone has been living way above her salary. Jordan pointed to the expense reports. She's been billing personal shopping trips as client entertainment. That dress she wore to the company holiday party? $8,000, charged to the business account under professional development. She's done this at least 15 times in the last 6 months. Naomi flipped through the pages. Jewelry, spa treatments, luxury hotel stays, all disguised as business expenses. This is fraud. It gets better, Jordan said, pulling out another stack of papers. She's been submitting invoices for vendor services that don't exist. I cross-referenced the vendor names with state business registrations. 3 of them are shell companies registered to P.O. boxes. The payments go to an offshore account. How much has she stolen? Roughly 400,000 over the past year. Naomi leaned back in her chair, processing this information. Simone wasn't just Trevor's boss. She was a criminal. And Trevor had no idea he'd left his wife for a woman who was embezzling from the company. What about Trevor? Naomi asked quietly. Has he been involved in any of this? Jordan hesitated, which told Naomi everything she needed to know. He's been helpful to her in ways that violate his employment contract. He shared confidential sales data with her that he shouldn't have had access to. He used his credentials to retrieve files from secure servers and forward them to her personal email. Why would he do that? Based on the timestamps and email contents, it looks like he was trying to impress her. He wanted to prove he could be useful to someone in power. Jordan's expression softened with sympathy. He was manipulating data to make her division look better in corporate reports. Naomi felt a fresh wave of pain. Trevor hadn't just betrayed her personally. He'd betrayed professional ethics, company policy, and his own integrity, all to impress a woman who was using him. Does Simone know the data was falsified? Naomi asked. Hard to say for certain, but given her level of experience, she should have questioned some of the numbers. Either she knew and didn't care, or she was willfully blind to it. Naomi stood and walked to the window again. Somewhere out there, Trevor was probably at his desk at TechVision, thinking he'd made the smartest decision of his life. He traded a supposedly ordinary wife for a powerful executive. He thought he'd moved up in the world. What do you want to do? Jordan asked gently. We could report this immediately. Both of them would be terminated and possibly face criminal charges. No. Naomi turned around, her expression calm but determined. Not yet. If we move now, Trevor will think this is about the affair. He'll paint me as a vindictive ex-wife who couldn't handle being left. The truth will get lost in the drama. So what's the plan? Schedule a routine corporate audit of TechVision Industries for next month. Make it part of our standard quarterly review process. Nothing unusual. TechVision gets audited regularly anyway. Jordan nodded, understanding immediately. The audit will uncover Simone's fraud naturally. No one can claim bias or revenge. Exactly. And Trevor's contract violations will come out as part of the investigation. It won't be personal. It will be business. Naomi sat back down at her desk. In the meantime, I want full surveillance on both of them. Legal surveillance only, nothing invasive. Track their social media, their public activities, any information they share openly. You want to see how far they'll go. I want to document everything. When this ends, I want a complete record of how they behaved during this time. Let them think they got away with it. Let them celebrate their victory. Jordan made notes on her tablet. What about the divorce? Trevor said he'd send papers. Let his lawyer contact mine. I'll sign whatever he wants. He thinks I'm Grace Collins with minimal assets. My legal team will keep it that way. He'll get what he expects from an ordinary divorce. Nothing. He's going to be shocked when he finds out the truth. He's going to be destroyed, Naomi corrected quietly. But that's not my goal. My goal is justice. What happens to Trevor after the truth comes out is his own fault. Jordan studied her boss with concern. Are you okay? Really okay? This is your marriage we're talking about, not just a business problem. Naomi was quiet for a long moment. I'm hurt, she admitted finally. I loved him. I trusted him. I thought we built something real together. But I'm also angry. Not just because he cheated, but because of why he cheated. He didn't fall in love with Simone as a person. He fell in love with what he thought she represented. Power. Status. Success. He's an idiot. A small smile crossed Naomi's face. Yes, he is. But he's an idiot who made his choice. Now he gets to live with the consequences. Jordan stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, you deserve so much better than him. You always did. I know, Naomi said. And she meant it. After Jordan left, Naomi opened her personal laptop and looked at Trevor's social media for the first time since Saturday. His profile picture had changed. It was now a photo of him and Simone at an expensive restaurant, both dressed up, both smiling like they'd won the lottery. The caption read, "New chapter, new life, no regrets." Naomi stared at those 3 words. No regrets. After 5 years of marriage, he had no regrets about leaving her. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing how much that hurt. Instead, she opened a new document and began writing down every detail she could remember about their marriage. The good times and the bad. The moments when she'd noticed his obsession with status. The conversations where he'd dismissed her thoughts. The times he'd made her feel small. She'd been so busy trying to be loved for who she was that she'd missed all the signs of who he really was. Never again. Naomi Bennett had built an empire by being smarter, working harder, and planning better than everyone else. Trevor and Simone had no idea what was coming for them. And when it arrived, it would be perfectly legal, completely justified, and absolutely devastating. Trevor couldn't believe how good life had become. 2 weeks after leaving Naomi, he was living in Simone's penthouse apartment downtown, waking up to city views and coffee made by someone who actually appreciated him. "Good morning, handsome," Simone said, walking into the bedroom wearing a silk robe. She handed him a cup of coffee. "I have news. You're being promoted." Trevor sat up quickly. "What? Really? Really? I recommended you for senior sales manager. The approval came through this morning. $20,000 raise, better benefits, and you'll be working directly under me on the executive floor." Trevor felt a rush of validation. This was what he'd been waiting for. Recognition. Respect. Success. "That's incredible. Thank you." Simone kissed him. "You earned it. You've been invaluable to me these past few months. The data you've provided has made my division look outstanding. I'm just glad I could help." Trevor had spent countless evenings pulling reports and analytics for Simone, using his system access to get information she claimed she needed for strategy meetings. It felt good to be useful to someone who mattered. Not like with Naomi, who barely even told him what she did all day. "We should celebrate," Simone said. "I'm thinking dinner at Augustino's, then maybe dancing?" "Perfect." Trevor grabbed his phone to post about his promotion on social media. His feed had been blowing up since he'd updated his relationship status. Friends and former colleagues were commenting, some supportive, some clearly confused about how quickly he'd moved on. He didn't care what they thought. They didn't understand. He'd wasted 5 years with a woman who took him for granted. Now he was with someone who saw his potential. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Trevor, please call me. We need to talk about Naomi." He deleted it without responding. His family loved Naomi, which was part of the problem. They thought she was perfect just because she was polite and brought nice wine to holiday dinners. They didn't see how absent she was, how little effort she put into their marriage. "Everything okay?" Simone asked, noticing his expression. "Just my mother trying to guilt-trip me. She doesn't understand our situation. Family never does." Simone sat beside him on the bed. "They always want you to stay in comfortable situations, even when those situations make you miserable. But you and I, we understand that life is about taking what we deserve." Trevor nodded. This was exactly right. He deserved success. He deserved a partner who was present and engaged. He deserved a better life than the one Naomi could provide. At work that day, his new title brought immediate changes. He moved to a larger office with a window. His name was added to high-level email chains. People who'd barely noticed him before were suddenly friendly and respectful. During a department meeting, Simone publicly praised his contributions. "Trevor has been instrumental in our recent success," she told the room. "His insights and analysis have helped us exceed our quarterly targets by 15%. Trevor felt pride swell in his chest. This was what recognition felt like. This was what it meant to be valued. After the meeting, several colleagues congratulated him. One of them, a guy named Brian who'd been with the company for 10 years, pulled him aside.